prior to me going to France, we had traveled from Cameroon to the US with my dad. So we spent like a month there. My first day at school, I'm going into the break time, the recess, and there's this guy who comes to me and who says, hey, where you from? When he say where you from, my natural answer was, where did you just come from? Not like, where are you from, like originally. Well, that's how I heard it. And then I say to him, just came from the US. And then the rumor spread at school that I was an American. I also let it go like this. I was perceived as an American boy.
So what does it mean to be more than an immigrant? To carry stories, cultures, and experiences that stretch across continents? To exist beyond labels and stereotypes? Well, this episode of My Thick Accent dives deeper into these questions with a guest who is a filmmaker, an activist, and a relentless advocate for human rights. From Cameroon to France, then to the US, then to UK, and now Canada, his journey has been shaped by movement, adaptation, and the pursuit of a world that embraces diversity. His work, from award-winning documentaries to thought-provoking activism, has always centered on amplifying marginalized voices and challenging the biases that divide us. Through thought-provoking conversations and a powerful reading of his poem, More Than an Immigrant, he reminds us that home is synonymous with a place where joy, laughter, smiles, and happy memories are created. This episode is a celebration of resilience, identity, and the journey of carrying multiple homes within us. Join us as we go beyond the accent, beyond the labels, and straight to the heart of what it truly means to belong. Please welcome Yannick.
Hello. Gurasis. Gurasis. I mean, I need to get it right. I want to get it right. So you have to teach me how to say it right, please.
It's Gurasis.
Gurasis. Okay, Gurasis. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to try to remember it. Gurasis. Okay.
You can ask me as many times as you want. No worries.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
But speaking of you now, welcome to the podcast, Yannick. Very excited to have you and, kind of unfold your immigrant journey so far throughout continents. So welcome once again.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And, I'm here to answer any of the questions that you have. I mean, let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So this episode, Yannick, is actually part of my season 2 of the podcast, where I'm trying to turn up the fun factor a little bit. And I'm going to start by asking you some fun questions. So, okay?
Sounds good.
So the very first question is, what's your go-to breakfast?
Oh, go-to breakfast. Well, it's changed, just recently. But I would definitely say that the go-to breakfast would be some croissant, because I guess from having lived in France for a little while and having like that French culture, like a nice baguette, croissant, and hot chocolate as well. Yeah, and sometimes I put a little bit. I'm a chocolate guy, so sometimes I put a little bit of Nutella on my croissant and on my bread. So that would be, I guess, a typical breakfast. Yeah.
Wow, sounds tasty. Have you got used to the Tim Hortons double? I mean, you are very new to Canada, but how do you feel about that?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think I've become a fan of Tim Hortons. Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay. So next is, share a favorite song or a dialogue or a movie and tell us why it's significant to you.
That's an interesting question. I guess this question would take me a little while to answer, because I would describe myself as a deep thinker, and I would like I would love to think a little bit deeper before answering that question. But just for the purpose of your game, so to speak, sure. I'm just gonna tell you about the song that I was actually just a quick story. I was talking with my daughter, my oldest daughter. She's 15. And she's doing this storytelling project in class. And then she asked me she's asking me some questions about my story. So I've been, in the same way that I'm doing what that we're going to be doing right now on the podcast. Yeah. I mean, I've been doing that with her, kind of thing. And
I see.
And as I was telling her about my journey, I was telling her about the influence of America and the
Mm-hmm.
US in my journey, and how at some point America had become, or the US when I was 14, 15, it had become so influential through the American, the US, the African American culture,
Mm.
the basketball, the hip hop, and basically the way they were dressing. I mean, we found them so cool that at some point I got nicknamed the American guy, the American boy, in Cameroon,
Okay.
because we were so into that culture, right? And so as we were discussing that, that's the song came to mind as I was just to illustrate that
Mm-hmm.
conversation, and that was American Boy from Estelle and John, and I think Estelle and Kanye West, I think, or
Okay.
Estelle and John Legend. So yeah, the song is called American Boy, and Estelle is like a UK artist, and it's
Mm-hmm.
about the fusion between UK and America and the US, and just this is like a whole conversation around what I've just described, which is the influence of that culture on the world, basically,
Mm.
African American culture on the world. So yeah,
I
I
see.
guess, yeah, just
Wow.
that
No,
was.
I'm always fascinated by the answers I get to this question. That's why I asked this, because
uh,
that tells like the kind of the music the person listens to and the impact that their life throughout, the things that I've had. So
mhm.
yeah, thank you for sharing that.
No,
Um,
absolutely.
I also wanted to tell us like or teach us one phrase in your mother tongue and what does it mean?
Okay, I guess one phrase would be Nasum, Nasum, Nasum. Nasum means thank you.
Nasum.
So Nasum, yeah,
Oh,
Nasum,
okay.
yeah, that means thank you. And yeah, I guess that's the first phrase that comes to mind, because
Mm,
it reminds me of something that is very dear to our culture. It's about, I think it's a concept that is very dear to the Cameroonian culture. It's about being grateful, right? Being grateful and
I
being
see.
thankful, right? So, and since we're here, I guess uh, the first phrase that I want to say is thank you for having me. So I have to say Nasum, Nasum for being here, Nasum for having me as a guest today.
Wow, I love that. I've noted that down for myself and for the
Awesome,
listeners
awesome,
as well.
awesome.
Um, so, and the next is, and the last one is, if you could teleport back to a particular place from your home country for a
Mhm.
day, where would it be and what would you do?
Okay, teleport back. Well, I guess it would definitely be the place where I spent a little bit of my childhood, and that's my grandpa and my grandma's house in
Hmm.
Cameroon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a neighborhood called Bonapriso,
Hmm.
and when that's where the family home is currently at the moment. And yeah, and then there's so many why, because there's so many joyful memories about that time, just spending time with grandma and grandpa, just being you know just basically all of our needs were attended, and the grandparents were so sweet to us, and we were kind of like the favorite grandchildren, and just every little things that we wanted, we got. And so not just the memories from that place are just, when I
Hmm.
think about it, I mean, I just have goosebumps, because yeah, it was just
Hmm.
such a joyful time. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think every time anybody talks about the grandparents, I think that nostalgia just like kind of creeps into you, you kind of like
Yeah.
reminisce those times and then the amazing just memories that you hold with yourself. But
Yes,
speaking of
yes.
that, I think this would be a great segue to ask you to tell us more about your time in Cameroon. If you can
Hmm.
share a little bit about your formative years and how was it like just growing up there?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, I was born in Cameroon in the year 1980, exactly. And I spent the first, I would say, 13 to 14 years of my life there. So
Mm-hmm.
this is really a place where, yeah, as you talked about formative years, this is really a place where I got shaped, I got formed.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, um, I believe this was the best years of my life, because this is where I received the foundations of who I am today as a human being. And
Mm.
when I think about foundation, when I talk about foundation, I really think about a certain set of values that are very dear to the African culture,
Hmm.
and that were kind of passed on to me at that time. Value of respect, value of respect for elders, things like nature, hospitality, solidarity,
Mm.
so many integrity, honesty, so many values that when I think about my childhood in Cameroon, I definitely associate it with a certain set of values that were passed on to me by my family and by my grandparents and by my parents, and I also obviously when I think about it, I'm thinking about the food, the very delicious food. I'm thinking about the weather was, and I also think about just a feeling of when you're a kid and uh, it's almost like you have no worries whatsoever about life, right? Just if you want
Yeah.
to just go out there and when you are just outside, you have friends and you just decide suddenly to, uh,
Carefree.
yeah, very carefree, right? You want to play soccer, for example, and then you decide to play soccer in the middle of, because we were living like in a residential neighborhood, right? My
Okay.
grandparents were, it was like a residential neighborhood, and sometimes with my friends we would just literally block the street outside and just create like a soccer field just in front of the street, in front of the house, and the cars weren't passing because we were just playing outside. And you just, yeah, so you have this carefree and sense of freedom. And so so many words are coming into my mind when I think about my childhood. So I don't know if
Hmm.
that answers your question.
It does. It does. Tell me more about the family dynamics, what the focus was on growing up.
Hmm. Well, again, I think for me the family dynamics was really about those values, right? Because
Okay.
my late mother was as a teacher, and my late father was a I would say more on my late mother's side, because she was a teacher and she was, I would say, a disciplinarian, right? She was
Okay.
the one who would instill discipline in the kids.
Yeah. Being in
Uh,
that profession, it comes with. Yeah.
yeah, it does come
Yeah.
with that, right? And she was very, she wanted to make sure that that the kids, that her kids would grow up with, would become decent human beings, right? Decent human beings, and
Yeah.
very polite, and that was very something that she really emphasized on.
Mm.
My late dad on the other hand was more of a laid back person, more chilled, and he would
Mhm.
be more of a person who. One thing that I remember from him is that he would be more of a person who would uh, not only lead by example, but also the way, for example, in the same way that my late mother was a disciplinarian, and she
Mhm.
would try and instill discipline. My dad would be, it would be more like, okay, you have to learn from your mistakes. So if you make a mistake, I'm just gonna not say anything, right, or not try to convince you to not to go another route, but eventually, what I want you to do is that if you ever make a mistake, I would like you to learn from it, and then so that because you learn by you know by kind of practicing, right? And as you learn those things, or as you make mistakes, you realize that, okay, this is not something that I should have done. And then maybe you're gonna try and next time you're not gonna find yourself, you're gonna try and avoid being in those kind of positions. So that was kind of like the dynamic in the family.
Mhm.
Also, what else can I say about the dynamics that actually shaped me? My dad also had a very big influence on me. He was a guy who was very uh, he was so attached to his culture, the Cameroonian culture,
Okay.
and in fact, he was actually working for the government. He was quite he had quite a high rank in the government, but one of his passion was actually the promotion of Cameroonian culture,
Okay.
and so he would organize events, work with artists, and sometimes even while he was doing those events, he would take us with him. Eventually, for example, sometimes, I mean, he would let's say he would try to target like big events, for example, the soccer World Cups. And let's say if the Cameroonian team were qualified for those events, for example, we had an opportunity to go to the World Cup in the US with him and with the Cameroonian team, and also in the World Cup in France, right? And so what we would do is that we would go with the team, and then we would organize some kind of cultural activities around the stadium, aiming at promoting the Cameroon culture. So all that to say that he was someone who was very attached to the culture, and also a promoter of that culture, and that
Mm.
kind of love for culture has been instilled to me in a way. I mean, looking back, when I think
Mm.
about my work even today,
Yeah.
which is being a sort of like bridge between cultures, right? I think that the premises of that work, definitely were seen at that time in Cameroon, just
Hmm.
hanging out with my dad on these
Yeah.
events. So
Yeah. So you're very, very rooted in the culture and sort of like took pride in this culture as well. And I think it sort of like
yes,
passed on you the same thing.
yes,
Tell me,
yes.
Yannick, what was your dream career growing up?
Well, dream career. I mean, that's an interesting question because to me, you would be surprised, but I did not necessarily have a dream career.
Okay.
Um,
Maybe somebody who influenced you the most? Maybe a character in the films or could it be around you?
I mean, my biggest influence was my dad, right? That
Okay.
was like my hero.
I
He
see.
was my hero. So, and to me, I was just kind of like going through the motions. I mean, I think um, it's very difficult to picture, but I would definitely say that my parents made sure that we had no worries about anything in life.
Hmm.
That it was almost, and that's that sense of being carefree, and that
Hmm.
freedom. It was almost like there was no pressure. Let's say let's take a scenario where you have a family, and then the family of doctors, for example, and
Yeah.
because there's a family of doctors, the parents are putting pressure on their kids to be also doctors, and then the kids feel that pressure, and then so. But for us, it was like, okay, it was almost like, okay, you're free to choose any path that you like to choose, but all we want is that you take time. You don't rush into doing anything that you don't want to do, but just take the time, and at the appropriate time choose your path, right? So
Hmm.
it was in that spirit that I kind of like grew up. And for me, that's when I said I was just going through the motion. I did not really have any pressure whatsoever to choose a certain path. But I could, in contrast, I could also tell you that because I have two other siblings, right? A younger sister and an older brother. I could definitely say that my older brother is a poet today. He's a renowned
Okay.
poet in France. He writes
Okay.
books and things of that nature. If you were to talk to him, he would tell you that since he was the age of 8, he already knew what he wanted to do. He already dreamed. He already
Hmm.
dreamt about being
I
a
see.
poem and writing books and things like that. But for me, it was not like that. It was just okay. Just enjoy your every single period of time. Enjoy your teenage years, and just enjoy your childhood. Enjoy your teenage years. Enjoy
Hmm.
every season of your life. Just take them as they come, and yeah. So That's a surprising answer, I'm pretty sure, but yeah, I didn't
Well, your
understand.
motto was carpe diem, just live in the moment
Absolutely,
and enjoy.
absolutely, live in the moment. Absolutely.
Okay. Um, so last question about one more thing about Cameron. Tell us
Mhm.
something that people might not know about Cameron that you would like to educate us about.
I'm thinking about asking you the question. What do you know about Cameroon first?
Me, so I know that it's bilingual.
Okay,
English
okay,
and French is kind of spoken widely. That's what I
uh-huh.
know.
Okay,
And I haven't spoken to enough people from
okay,
Cameroon so far.
okay, okay,
So I think I will let you take the stage and educate us more about that.
okay, okay. All right. So, well, okay. So that's a good start. It's a bilingual country. That's a very good
Yeah.
start. English and French. Another fun fact about Cameroon is that they have it's a soccer country. They call it football over there. They have like a
Yes.
very big
Yeah.
soccer
Hmm.
team. Actually did their golden years were in the 90s, where they did very well in the 90s World Cup. They were the first African team to qualify to the quarterfinal of a World Cup. So
Hmm.
they have a very good team of soccer. And also a fun fact about it is it's that Cameroon is called Africa in miniature, because
Mm.
from east to west, from north to south, you have different landscapes, different people, kind of like tribes and cultures. So really, when you travel around Cameroon, you could be traveling from one area of Cameroon to another, and feel
Hmm.
like you were traveling from one country to another country, right?
Mm.
Because it's so
Fascinating.
diverse, right? It's diverse as far as culture, is diverse even as far as religion. You have Christians, Muslims, you have all types of. So it's a very very diverse country,
Hmm.
and I would also definitely say that my passion for diversity also has to come from the diversity of
Yeah.
Cameroon that I've witnessed as I was growing up. Because
Yeah.
like I said, there's a country that has like over 320 or 300 different ethnic groups.
Oh wow.
So
Hmm.
yeah, obviously the main languages are English and French, but within those communities, I mean, people are still speaking their own language. So you can be going
Hmm.
from one area of Cameroon to another, and then have two different languages that are spoken.
Hmm.
So how do you navigate those differences? You have to find a way of navigating the differences and accepting the other. And so I think also my love for diversity came from my Cameroonian heritage.
Absolutely. So that's where the seed for it was planted. I would love to explore more
Hmm.
where that plant has grown to.
Hmm.
But now I want to pivot towards, your move to France. I think you were
Hmm.
telling me at the age of 14, you
Yeah,
decided to
yeah.
move. Tell me what influenced the decision to do that.
Oh, to do that. Oh, yeah. I mean, I did not decide. I was too young. I was 14, so I did not
Yeah.
decide to move. But well, unfortunately, it was an unfortunate event that actually happened. I lost my mom at that age, at the
Okay.
age of 14, and so that's when basically my dad took the decision to send me and my siblings to France to live with my aunt,
Okay.
my mom's sister, because obviously he found himself on his own in Cameroon. So the question was, okay, he asked my aunt to kind of like help him raise us, right? So
Okay.
that's why we had to kind of like move, and so we moved to Cameroon following that event.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember your first day when you moved there? Any initial thoughts or emotions?
Um, Not really. I mean,
Hmm.
yes and no. I would say yes and no. But as I was sharing with my daughter, because we had that conversation a couple of days ago, and
Okay. Were you preparing for this podcast while talking to her or what?
I guess, I guess, so. I guess it looks like it.
Yeah.
It looks like it. No, I mean, I think things happen so fast
Okay.
that I did not have. I don't think I had time to process what was
Okay.
happening. It was just
Of
okay.
course.
this is an event that just happened. Okay, you guys have to go. And then the next thing that we know, we have already moved from Cameroon. So now we're in France. And then, so just have to adjust quickly to the changes that are going on. But you don't really, because it happens so fast, you don't really take the time to process, right? So at the time, I wouldn't say that I did not have any emotion, but I would just say that I did not have enough time to process it. Now, if you tell me looking back, uh, maybe looking back, I can give you some pointers and some answers on how, the emotions and the thing that I've been able to process now, looking back at that, to that time. But at that time in particular, to answer your question, it was, like I said, too fast, too quick. And so no time to process, just move on and, keep it moving and, just do what you have to do, basically.
Yeah. Until what age did you stay in France then before moving to US?
Until about the age of 18. So until after
Oh,
my,
okay.
I basically finished, completed my high school in France. And then I moved after my, it's called the baccalaureate there, the French baccalaureate. So yeah, it was at 18.
You talked about solidarity, integrity, and the values sort of like instilled in you growing up. During the time in France, at any point were they like shaken here and there, or sort of like the whole culture or having that experience of being an immigrant sort of like shook you in any way in that country?
It's funny that you asked me the question because again, my daughter asked me the same questions, and I told her a funny story that I still think about today. So prior to moving to France, so I told you earlier about my dad and his cultural events with Cameroon. So it was 1994. And 1994 was the World Cup, the soccer World Cup in the US. So prior to me going to France, we had traveled from Cameroon to the US with my dad
Okay.
to support the Cameroonian team. So we spent like a month there in the US, right? Doing all those cultural activities, and so it was on the way back from the US that instead of going all the way to Cameroon, so my dad said, okay, you guys are going to stay with your aunt, and then I'm just going to go all the way to Cameroon. And then, so that's how it happened. So the funny story is that my first day at school, I'm going into the break time, the recess, and there's this guy who comes to me and who says, hey, where are you from? And all of that. And when you say where you from, where do you come from? I mean, to me, my natural answer was, where are you from? Where did you just come from? Right? Where did you just come from? Not like, where are you from?
I
Like
see.
originally, that's how I heard it. And then I say to
Okay.
him, I just came from the US, right? And San Francisco and all that. And then that turned out to be, oh, this guy is from the US. And
Okay.
so, and then the rumor spread at school that I was an American, right? That I came from the US. And since I was like very,
Okay.
very good in English. And so that's basically how, before, before people even had the time to kind of have a conversation with me and to find out exactly where I was from, it seems like it was convenient for them to look at me as this American boy who was just coming into the school and who was enticing their curiosity, and I guess I also let it go like this, and then so it turned out that um, you know I was perceived as an American boy, and so to answer your question, so I'm going to answer your question, right?
Okay.
And the answer to my question, the answer to your question is that I'm gonna answer your question, but I'm gonna talk to you about that that experience of me being perceived as an American, but also the experience of some of my friends, because at the time also because of the colonial history between France and Cameroon, it was very it was like a custom for parents to send their kids to France, right,
Yeah.
to study. So some of my friends that I left behind in Cameroon ended up coming also for their studies in France at some point.
Okay.
And so when they were sharing their stories of their first encounter and their immigration journey, it wasn't as fun as mine, because they were saying that they had encountered a lot of racism. People asking them questions like, do you guys live in
Hmm.
trees in Cameroon? Do you guys live in the jungle? Do you live with animals? So things like that. So just goes to show you that in one instance, or I guess the lack of conversations can actually lead to either a positive perception or a negative perception, depending on your positionality, right? How you position
Yeah.
yourself. So for me, because I said, okay, yeah, I, or they perceive me to be an American because of that short conversation that we had,
Hmm.
and that was, so that kind of like led to a whole different experience than my friends who, because they were coming from Africa. So it goes to show that,
Hmm.
depending on where you're from, you can have a certain color, but from one uh, area of the world, you can be perceived negatively, and the other area of the world you can be perceived positively, right? So
Hmm. Yeah. It's, I mean, it proves to show the preconceived notions that people have associated to certain names of the countries. It's insane,
absolutely,
this example
absolutely,
is the testimony of to that, how
absolutely.
quickly we are to judge somebody based on where is actually the person from.
Hmm.
Wow, I love that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Talk to me about your transition to US then. Why
Yeah.
US, and what influenced that decision?
Yeah, I mean, US, as I already kind of like alluded to in my introduction,
Hmm.
when I was 14, that influence with the American culture, it was like almost like it had always been a dream for me to have an experience in the US, right? And
Okay.
so, in fact, when I went first in 1994 with my dad, I actually tried to convince him to leave me behind in the US, right? But he said to me, "No, I mean,
Hmm.
you're just too young to stay here and on your own." And we didn't have anybody in the US at the time.
Yeah.
So when I was 18, I managed to convince my dad that he could let me go on a quote unquote sabbatical and take like a year, because I just completed my degree. So in between, or my high school degree, in between my high school and university, like just leave me like maybe like a little gap, and then just to go and explore. And so that's, and so he got convinced, and so the destination was the US. And why the US?
Hmm.
Because we had like a good family friend,
Hmm.
so a family friend of my dad who was living in Atlanta in the US. And then so we talked to him, and then we kind of like made it happen.
So when you were asked there, where are you from? What did you say then? France?
Yeah, I mean, when I was asked there where I was from, I said France, Cameroon, but I said Cameroon, I said France also. But I guess one thing that I noticed from being in the US, I guess
Hmm.
it's not everywhere the same in the US, but in some parts of the US, especially the South, is that people are not really exposed to world culture. And they don't have
Hmm.
uh, an expanded general knowledge, right? In general, right? So people kind of like reduced. Even sometimes, some people, even outside Georgia, they don't even know. Because, for example, when I would say, I spent some time in Paris, people would ask me, Paris where? Paris, Georgia, or Paris, Paris,
Oh,
because in the
okay.
US you have to say the city and then the state, right? So I
Yeah.
would say, yeah, I'm coming from. I mean, I spent some time in this city or that city, and they say, oh, which city is it? Which state is that? So
Hmm.
just goes to show you that there's a certain level of I would say ignorance in
Hmm.
some parts of the US that I mean, the conversation cuts short really quickly because
Okay.
people are not exposed to a lot, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
right?
So you were saying that you were seen through a certain lens of nationality, race, or accent in any way?
I would definitely say that I would not even go as far as saying race, accent. I would definitely say that there is still in Georgia a lot of segregation. I mean, the legacy of
Hmm.
segregation is still there, and it's like almost like a black and white thing, you know. So it's
Okay.
like, you know, white people are with. So it's like a community are divided as far as race is concerned. It's very difficult to explain, you know, the dynamics there, because even within the so you have the first division, which is like the race division, right? So black and
Hmm.
white. And then you have subdivisions, because even within the blacks, you wouldn't necessarily see black Americans interact with black Africans, for
I
example,
see.
or black
Hmm.
Cameroonians. So you'll have Cameroonians are going to be staying with Cameroonian, Nigerians are going to be staying with Nigerians. And so people don't really, because of that legacy of segregation, people organically don't really mix with one another.
Hmm. I
So
see.
they rather stay within their own silos and their own
Hmm.
communities. So that's something that, um, when you're talking about cultural shock,
Hmm.
that shocked me. France, for example, has had a lot of criticism recently as far as the multiculturalism and things like that. But to me, when I look at France, I think there are different levels to integration and to making people who are not seen as part of the normal feel integrated. At the societal level, I think there's like a mix, a very good mix. People are very good at mixing with one another in France. But the
Hmm.
problem becomes when you start working, and that's when you find ceilings. You know, you cannot go, and you have to, you stop at a certain level if you are of a certain color, or if you are or if you have a certain accent. You will always find a ceiling when you start professional life. But at the very low level, you know, like at university or at schools and things like that, you know, groups are mixing at least, right?
Hmm.
But in America, or what I found, at least in Atlanta, I'm not going to generalize and say America in general, but I would say Atlanta in particular. It wasn't there. People were not just different communities were not just mixing with one another, and this was something
Hmm.
that really shocked me. And later on, that was one of the reasons why I actually at some point decided to move out of there, because
Hmm.
of that cultural shock, you know.
So, you touched on a couple of points here, but tell me for you, Yannick, your transition from Cameroon to France and studying
Mhm.
there and coming to US as well, how this all transition and having this experiencing firsthand the segregation within the community and living in that ecosystem, how does it shape your identity and
Mhm.
understanding of belonging?
Mhm. To this day, I have a very different. I mean, I have a very clear definition of what belonging means to me.
Absolutely. It's
All
been
right.
like decades of work and experience that kind of like
Yeah.
counts here. But at
Yeah.
that moment, at the age of 21, 22, you don't know like what's exactly happening. So what
Mhm.
happened then?
My reaction is always okay. If I don't feel like I belong somewhere,
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to change my environment. So
Hmm.
that's my reaction. So that's why, for example, after staying, you know, a few years in the US, I'm like, okay, this does not feel right. So I'm just gonna have to make a move. So at that time, and it was the same in France as well. I guess the reason why I left France is because I felt like I'd reached that ceiling that I was talking to you about. You know, although I did
Hmm.
not work, but I felt like I'd reached that ceiling, and that I needed to uh, look at other horizons. So for me at that time is really okay. So if you don't feel comfortable in an environment, the natural answer would be okay, just try to find another environment that you feel comfortable into.
So now I want to move towards, your time that you moved to London. And I
Hmm.
think that was your one of the stops before you even came to Canada.
Yeah.
And we spent almost 2 decades there, more than 20 years.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I was just researching, Yannick, I think there were time there I found it pretty fascinating, considering the work also you did and trajectory that you followed towards filmmaking as well. I want to go deeper into that, but tell me first of all that what made you make this big stop of 20 years in London? What made you stop there?
Well, it started as it wasn't meant to be such a long stop. I don't think it was.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
to me at the time, looking back, but obviously, if I spent 20 years there, that means that it was meant to be, right? but uh, no, but I would say definitely that it's my wife. Actually, my wife. I mean, my wife to be well, my then to be, I mean, then she wasn't my wife yet. I mean, we were still like, kind of dating, and because we were best friends before, and then we kind of like fell in love and decided to be together as husband and wife. So, but she actually, when I expressed to her my desire to kind of like change environment,
Hmm.
because the US I'd got tired of the US. Just in short, she suggested that I came to visit, that I come to visit the UK, because older brothers were living in the UK. So she said,
Hmm.
just
Okay.
come for a visit, and then you see how it goes. And then that's how I ended up in the UK. I came. It was supposed to be a very short visit, and then
Hmm.
20 years later I was still there. So yeah. So that's how it happens. Basically, it was my wife who actually recommended, and who convinced me, who persuaded me to come and follow her
Okay.
in the UK. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting.
Hmm.
So, also when I was researching about you, like I said, I went deep into your history and your time that you spent there,
Hmm.
and it also when I talk to people like you on the podcast, I realized that how less I am aware of global history
Hmm.
because I live in like a complete different part of the world and such some incidents that have happened like
Hmm.
at times when I was like 5 or 6 and the world wasn't as connected as we are today in
Yeah.
2025 and I wasn't
Sure.
that aware and then when I researched and I realized okay I wasn't aware of these incidents and that's where I stumbled upon your documentary
Hmm.
that was called when Tottenham exploded. It
Yeah.
kind of focuses on the social tensions and systematic issues in the UK in 2011, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And tell me more about that.
Hmm.
What made you sort of like make the documentary and what led you to
Hmm.
documentary filmmaking?
Hmm. Well, you will be surprised. Maybe not, but it was actually a dream. It was actually a dream
Okay.
that led me
Hmm.
to filmmaking and documentary and all of that. And the dream was just as the those events of Tottenham unfolded. So those were like you said, it was like there were big riots that actually
Yeah.
occurred in not only in Tottenham, which is a neighborhood in London, right,
Yeah.
but also all across the UK. And the riots actually occurred right after there was an incident of police brutality in that neighborhood called Tottenham, which is predominantly black and ethnic. I mean, which
Yeah.
has predominantly black and ethnic minorities in it. So, or in the mainstream media at least, the assumption was that the people who were actually driving the riots were people of ethnic minority backgrounds. That was the
Hmm.
assumptions. Whereas the truth, it wasn't the truth at all. The truth at all is that people from all walks of life were involved in it. Although the event was sparked in that city because of that incident, that was like the big spark.
I believe it was following the death of Mark Duggins, right?
That
I
Mark
believe
Duggan, that's
at
correct.
the
Yeah,
hand of the police that happened. Just for the listeners, I was
yeah,
mentioning. Yeah.
that's correct. That's
Hmm.
correct. So a young man called Mark Duggan who fell at the end of in the hands of the police, and so the community came to ask for explanations, and the police did not kind of like, did not want to give any kind of explanations to them as to what happened. And then the frustration, the anger led to, people just being, just lashing out and I wouldn't even say rioting in Tottenham because it was like a peaceful protest, right? But for some
Mm.
reason, I don't know how or what led this event, this particular event in that city, to kind of turn into riots where people just kind of like decided to try and take advantage of the situation, and you would see in the news, people, like I said, from all walks of life coming out of shop with TVs. I think
Yeah.
it started with that event, but for me it ended up being uh, something that was deeply revealing of the consumerist society in which we live in, whereby
Mm.
people would just find any opportunity, or some people would just find any opportunity to
Their personal gain.
consume. Yeah, to
Yeah.
get something, right? To get something, because you
Hmm.
see, when you analyze it, you had, like I said, even middle class, people who were just, they saw a shop that was open and they just went into there and then grabbed whatever they could grab and then came out with it, right?
Yeah.
So so but the perception was, but in the mainstream media, the way it was portrayed, it was okay, it's just those young black or young brown people who have nothing to do, who are rioting. That's how it was pushed in the
Mm.
media, in the mainstream media. And so to me, uh, because that wasn't my experience, I was young at the time. I knew other young people who were not, we did not, I did not riot. I knew other people, young people, black, brown, and from all colors
Mm.
and shapes, who did not riot. And that really kind of like bothered me, just to see the kind of mainstream coverage that we were getting about this event. And I guess that's
Mm.
how I dreamt about it one day. And then when I wake up, what I remember is that as I was waking up, I remember that, in the dream, I felt like I was led to use my voice, so to speak,
Mm.
and say something about, or give my perspective. And that's how
Yeah.
it all started. So when I woke up that night, it started with me just getting my computer and just recording something, which was like a message, and I was just trying to give my perspective, and that's how
Mm.
that desire to want to give my perspective about this situation led to eventually making a short film about it, and yeah, and then that's how it happened.
Yeah. Wow, hats off to you for doing that. And I think we need more such people to kind of bring out the truth, because it's the truth that mainstream media does not cover the actual truth. And the people
Yes.
who are literally the real culprits are completely not even shown. And
Mm-hmm.
then we need people like you kind of like bring out the truth and encourage people to kind of follow that, rather
Mm-hmm.
than really being that, having that bullet theory where everything is kind of like just thrown at you and we accept it, whatever
Mm-hmm.
is thrown through media. But we
Mm-hmm.
do need the other perspective, the real perspectives, kind of to. And also hats off to you for documenting it, right? And I think for
Mm-hmm.
the generations to come, just like me, who wasn't even aware of it, I
Mm-hmm.
got to know about it, and today we are discussing it. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for documenting that. I appreciate that.
No,
Yeah.
no, thank you. Also, I mean, we also need people like you. I mean, because your work is the same. It's pretty much the same work. Just
Yeah.
giving another perspective on immigration and on going beyond the accent. So the
Yeah.
same way that I'm receiving your compliment, I'm thanking you for that. I
Yeah.
also want to
Yeah.
thank you for your work, the work that you're doing. Yeah, it's
No,
very
thank you. I
important.
appreciate that. I also want to tell our listeners that if I'm not wrong, correct me. It was, you were also like one of the best filmmakers in the short documentary category issued by the London Independent Film School in 2013, right?
Yes, film festival. Yeah, London Independent Film
Film
Festival.
festival.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was
Yeah.
first documentary, first festival, and yeah, we got the award for it. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
But you did not stop there. You also made another documentary called "When Humanity Knocked on Our Doors," and that's where you covered about the refugee crisis, and especially focusing on the lives of individuals in the Calais jungle. Pardon
Mhm.
my pronunciation. A
Mhm.
refugee camp in the France. Right. Tell us a little bit about that as well. And any of these documentaries are available for listeners to kind of like watch.
Yeah, the When Humanity Knocked at Our Door is available on YouTube.
Okay.
So I'll give you the links, and then your viewers can access it definitely. When Tottenham is not available yet, but it will soon be available because this one was kind of like made through City Hall, and we
Okay.
there was there was some kind of regulations and things like that, so it was commissioned by them, right? So
Hmm.
we were just I was just sort of like screening it in very it was like almost like private screenings
Hmm.
of the movie. So but the other one, When Humanity, is definitely available on YouTube. It's there, and as soon as the When Tottenham will be clear to be made public, I will definitely put it on my YouTube page as well.
Hmm.
YouTube page. So
Okay.
yeah, so just to answer your question, similar circumstances that when humanity knocked at our door, similar circumstances. At the time, there was so much talk about refugees and migrants in France, and again, the mainstream media giving a very stereotypical and preconceived notions about the immigrant and
Yeah.
the refugees, and they're just here to steal our jobs. They're here, so all those kind of very negative talks about people that I knew were not. Because again, I'm an immigrant.
Hmm.
I'm not a refugee, but I'm an immigrant, and I knew people around me who were not what was described in the news. That kind of like is same, pretty much same scenario that led me to say, okay, I'm just gonna give my perspective about this event, and I'm gonna go to that uh, so-called jungle,
Hmm.
and then and then show a different perspective, show a more human aspect to it, change a narrative about it. So
Hmm.
and that's kind of like how it happened. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
I think if any of our listeners are interested to learn more about it, definitely I'll put the links to both of the information about both of these in the show notes. You can check that. So, Yannick, before we get to the final segments, very briefly, I want to talk about your move to Canada. You moved recently in August 2023, like a year and a half ago. Tell me
Yes.
about your decision to move. I remember you were telling me that you were destined to come here since the process was accelerated somehow for you, and within few
Yes.
months, you
Yes. Yes.
decided to move here. So, tell me, how do you feel so far, and how is Canada treating you?
No, I mean, I often joke with my friend and say that I'm living the American or the Canadian dream right now.
Okay.
so, so my I can clarify that and say and go as far as saying that for me, the American, the Canadian, or even the French dream, or whatever dream that for me, the dream or the dream place that I see, or a place can become a dream place, a dream country, a dream area, a dream continent. And I talk about it a little bit in my poem. Is when I
Mhm.
can connect with certain people, right? So when I'm able to connect with certain people who speak the same language that I speak. And when I talk about language, I'm not talking about necessarily whether it's English or French
Mhm.
or native, but I'm talking about uh, 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 it's almost like a love language, right? It's almost like a love language, and so when and to answer your question, I just a few months, almost a year and a half into Canada, I definitely think that I've connected with my tribe, with those people,
Mm.
right? And so that's why I'm talking about dream. So to me, the dream has always been to connect with these kind of people, like-minded people, and with whom we can, not only build the connections, build on those connections. I mean, create connections,
Mm.
create connection and build on those connections, right? Build something based on
Absolutely.
those connections. So that's a very short answer to your question.
Okay. And when you're talking about the language, I would also add to that is also the language of humanity that one
Hmm.
has to speak. Yeah.
Absolutely, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned already, based on my kind of like track record, that notion of humanity and being humane and connecting with people on a very deep and human level is
Mhm.
yeah, it's everything for me, right? It's
Hmm.
everything. It's
Yeah.
everything.
When I was reading about your journey, I stumbled upon this one quote from Mr. Beast's interview. And I feel like I see you also sort of saying a similar quote. I'll tell you what the quote was. The quote is, "The cost of being different is highest when you are young, when the system forces you to fit in.
Mhm.
But as you grow, the world starts clapping for the unique ones,
Mhm.
learning from them, stealing from them, and aspiring to be them." And I
Mhm.
see you saying this quote. Am I
Mhm.
right or am I wrong?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. 100%. 100%. Yes.
Yeah. I'll share that with you. You can definitely use it
Yes.
somewhere if you want
Yes.
to.
Yes. Yes. Please. Yes. Please do. Please do. Please
Yeah.
do.
Speaking of you, talking to people and creating that humane connections, you also do have a podcast that you host. Tell our listeners more about that and where they can
Mhm.
find it.
Yes, I do have a couple of podcasts. One podcast that's out already, which is called The Diary of a Diversity Champion, is on Spotify. Again, you can put the link on your page to direct listeners to it. And there's also another podcast that which is going to be out or launched next week, actually next week on the 6th of March. This one has been in collaboration with the Intercultural Association of Greater Victoria. And
Mm.
this one is called I Am More Than the Immigrant You Had in Mind.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a storytelling project on immigration into Canada, about 14 guests that we have on the show, just telling us about their story, their immigration journeys. And again, as soon as the podcast will be out, I'll share the link with you, and so that you can share with your listeners as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Absolutely. I'll put the links to that in the show notes. So before Yanni, we get into the final segment, I have added this new segment in this season of the podcast. I call it Know Your Host, where I
Mm-hmm.
give my guests an opportunity to ask me any question they might have.
Okay, so
Note of questions, please.
how was your immigration journey from India? Is that right, to
Yep.
Canada? Did you come first? Did you come straight from India to Canada, or did you have any stops in between? And how was the cultural shock, if there was any? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about your experience moving from India to Canada?
Yeah, great question. It might have a long answer, but I'll try to sum it up quickly. Like you were telling me, it's going to take a long time, but I'll sum it
Yeah.
up.
Mm-hmm.
So I came directly from India.
Mm-hmm.
I finished my bachelor's in India. I was 21. I just turned 22, I believe, when I came to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Very pampered, very naive initially, and hadn't lived anywhere around the world apart
Mm-hmm.
from my own city. In fact, I haven't even moved to another city altogether. Never
Oh
did
wow.
that.
Okay. Okay.
So moved directly here, and initial days, obviously, a little bit of time to get accustomed to each other's accents, because that was my very first culture shock, because all my life I thought I had a very good command over the English language
Mm-hmm.
until I came to Canada and I'm talking and people are not even understanding me. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even heard in the classroom, not with the intent
Mm-hmm.
of people ignoring me, but they were just not able to understand my
Mm-hmm.
accent somehow or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that took a little bit of time. That kind of definitely it hit my confidence. I got very quiet and shy, even though I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I refused to kind of put my thoughts out or kind of participate in certain activities in the class, because I had this again, I had this notion that okay, they're not even understanding me. What's the fun of even saying anything? So that's
Mm-hmm.
where it got hit. But I think eventually, then we got a bit accustomed to each other's accents and we understood each other's sort of like personalities also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people hadn't ever seen a turban wearing person in their life. They didn't even know
Mm-hmm.
about my religion. I wouldn't be shocked if you might also not know, like at the age
Mm-hmm.
of 19 or 20, right? So
Mm-hmm.
most of my classmates were around the same age of mine, and they weren't
Mm-hmm.
even aware of my religion, and
Mm-hmm.
they were always sort of questioning, not directly, but I could see in their eyes or in their sort of non-verbal, a little bit of reluctance to kind of integrate and know more about me. But I think eventually I realized that I think I had to build that comfort level with the people. So I did that. And by asking them the questions about their culture, about themselves, about their
Mm-hmm.
immigration, if somebody has moved as an immigrant, or even their upbringing if they are natives, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that allowed me to have that dialogue with them and tell them more about me and the colors of my turban. And then eventually, I think things went pretty good. It took me a little bit of time, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, to get assimilate within the culture and understand that how the kind of things I need to unlearn, which are not serving me any more in this part of the world, and what all
Mm-hmm.
new things I have to learn to survive in this new world, because I'm trying to live a life in a world where life has never existed before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, I think I graduated, and that's where the actual life started, and got exposed to people outside of the classroom, because the challenges within classrooms are very linear, so to say. But then
Mm-hmm.
when you're outside, things kind of go haywire, and then the whole pressure of immigration, collecting the right points, collecting the
Mm-hmm.
points for PR, finding the right
Mm-hmm.
job, and etc
Mm-hmm.
etc kind of kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
And but everything eventually works out, and it all made me more resilient, for sure. Very, very grateful for the people I have met throughout my journey. And yeah, and I think I'm trying to pay it forward, so to say, through my podcast, bringing
Mm-hmm.
forth these stories of immigrants, instilling that hope and will in people that, hey, if he or she can do it, you can do it as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 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 Right, right. So, and when you talk about home, then and feeling at home, so would you say that you feel at home, and also, I guess, the notion of belonging also is included in that. So, do you feel like now
Yeah.
you belong more, and do you feel like home is here in Canada, in Montreal, or
Um,
what are your thoughts
Yeah,
there?
that's a great question. And that has been ongoing discussion throughout my conversations with my friends and family as well. Because
Mm-hmm.
as an immigrant, you are kind of somewhere, you're like in the limbo, right? You're not fully either way. Like, I'm like, I've said this like multiple times on the podcast that I'm like too Canadian for Indians, and I'm like too Indian for Canadians. I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
like in the middle somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But deep inside, I have actually understood this, Yannick, that home is where the people are actually. That's how
Mm-hmm.
I would define it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter where you are, as long as
Mm-hmm.
you have the people with you who are loving you, who genuinely
Mm-hmm.
care for you,
Mm-hmm.
and who are there in your ups and downs. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where the home is. I would say the home is through the people you live with. Although I still feel like I'm yet to find my true family here, but I still am extremely grateful for the people like you also, so to say, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're also sharing your story and kind of bringing me into the understanding of that we all are here for each other, right? So this is also
Absolutely.
the family I have built. So
Yes.
yeah, I
Yes.
think my short answer is, home is where the people you love are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, thank you for the questions. Always fascinated how my brain works, and people kind of shoot these questions at me, so thank you for that.
Well, thank you for answering.
Yannick, now you're in the final segment of the podcast. I call it Beneath the Accent. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to ask a couple of questions. You can answer them in one word or a
Mm-hmm.
sentence, or howsoever you feel like. The
Mm-hmm.
idea is just to know a little bit more about you. So,
Okay.
ready?
Sure. Sure. Yes. Let's go.
So, the first is, what advice would you give to your younger self, and at what age?
Advice I would give to my younger self, I would say stay the same. Don't change anything.
Okay. What would you like to say to your 60-year-old self?
I would say I hope you're happy with the choice that your younger self has made.
Okay. Describe a moment when you experienced a significant cultural difference that surprised you.
Definitely, I would say in Atlanta, Georgia.
Mhm.
I had a white girlfriend at the time, and she came to
Mhm.
visit me in my where I was living because it was a predominantly black neighborhood. It made me uncomfortable, the way they just looked at her and really, despised her. I mean, it's like they've never seen, I guess, an interracial couple before in their
I
lives.
see.
It was almost like surreal to them, right? And that kind of reflected in their looks. Coming from France again, which was, like I said, much more multicultural than that.
Okay. What's the one dish from your home country that always brings you comfort and nostalgia?
Plantains. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't bring you nostalgia because I can access them here. So, so
Okay.
yeah.
But it kind of reminds you of your heritage, right?
Oh,
Like you're
definitely,
bringing, yeah,
definitely. That
yeah,
is definitely that. Yeah, the
yeah.
plantains. Yes,
I was also reading that it's like a side dish for anything,
yes,
right?
yes, yes. You can literally.
Yeah.
It's like fries here. You can eat them with
Mm.
everything that you like. Fish, chicken, anything. Yeah.
So, since Yannick, you've lived like all around continents, what's your favorite cultural festival or celebration that you have come across? And do you actually celebrate it then?
One festival, a Cameroonian festival, actually. Never experienced it physically, but my dad was kind of like one of the organizers of it at some point, and I've
Hmm.
always heard about it. It's called it happens every year in December in Cameroon. The tribe from which my parents are like the water tribe, right? They close to the water, so there's all those celebration around the water, and then so it's called like it's almost like a water festival,
Okay.
and so there are a lot of activities around that, like races, fighting, a lot of and food degustation, a lot of good things that are happening in that time of the year, and
What's it called?
it's called the Ngondo, Ngondo, the,
Okay.
the the Ngondo Festival, and so this is one of the festival that I've, like I said, I've been exposed to,
Hmm.
not physically, but I've always wanted to, be part of it, and also that's another fun fact also about Cameroon. There's plenty of festival like this depending on
Hmm.
the tribe and the different cultures, and around all year round there are different activities like that are actually celebrating the culture, and
Okay.
so that's one, but you asked me for one, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
What? Okay.
Mhm.
Share a quick tip for fellow immigrants who are trying to adjust in a new country.
Remember that you have something to bring to the country.
Hmm.
When I'm asked this question, I always try to get people to remember the so-called soft skills,
Okay.
right? That those soft skills, and that I believe as immigrant and people from the global south,
Hmm.
we almost inherit them in our culture, because I've been around a lot of people from different
Hmm.
culture in the south, and you see a lot of commonalities as far as some of those values that I was talking to you about, hospitality
Absolutely.
and solidarity, and just respect for the elders, and just behaving in a certain way when you're in public and treating the other. So because those societies are collectivist societies, as opposed to here in Canada or in the West that are individualistic societies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Those skills that you have to bring, treat them as gifts that you are going to share with your host communities,
Yeah.
and use every opportunity to share those gifts with them. If you have that mindset of always trying to create this sort of like cultural exchange, then I think you'll be good. The journey will become easier and easier.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Thanks for that.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
since you spend most of your time in London, tell me about a friend that you made there, and are you still in connect?
I guess it's much more than a friend. I mean, I
Hmm.
think it's actually a lady who was uh, one of the leaders at the church that we attended. My family and I, my wife
Okay.
and my sister and I, and over the years, she became also she almost became like a mother to me, like a second mother, right?
I love that.
And we're still in touch today. She's a senior citizen, obviously, but yeah, but there's like this very deep affection and love for her, So yeah, when you talk to me, when you ask me about a friend, immediately my mind went to her. I mean, I don't know how
Go
that's
ahead.
the first picture that I saw,
Hmm.
and because yeah, she's more, but she's more, she's much more than a friend. She's almost like a mother to me.
Okay. What's something you ate for the first time in Canada? And did you like it?
Again, when we talked about Tim Beats, Tim Hortons earlier,
Yeah.
I would definitely say that it's, that's where my mind goes to Tim Hortons,
Mm.
or
Okay.
either Tim Hortons or the other restaurant is High Hop. It's they do pancakes and things like that,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. If you could describe yourself as any creature, what would it be and why?
A creature. It's funny that you say that. It's funny that you say that, just like now, because I mean, I'm actually talking to one of our common friend, Andrea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, about the project that I don't want to say too much about it
Okay.
now, but it's like a project that we are working on right now. The symbol of that project is the hummingbird.
Okay.
And that's how I see myself, because there's a legend. It's a native's legend. One day there was a big fire in the forest. All the animals were just trying to run away as fast as possible from that forest fire. All the animals but one, and it was the hummingbird. And the
Mm.
hummingbird started to collect some water and
Hmm.
started dipping the water on the fire. And then when the
Okay.
other animals say to him, why are you doing that? There's like such a big fire, and what are you gonna do? And then the hummingbird said, I'm just doing my part. I'm just doing my part.
Hmm.
All right.
I love that.
So yeah, so there could be a fire of hate, a fire of fear of the other, but you know, we all have to just, as long as we all do our part, then we never know what our part, how much of a long way the fact of doing our part will just take us in getting rid of the fire. So
Hmm.
for that, I would say definitely I'm a hummingbird.
Yeah.
And like I
I love
said,
that.
yeah, thank you. And like I said, there's a project coming around the corner.
Hmm. I'm looking forward to that. Great. And if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, one superpower. No, I think I already have my superpower, and my
Hmm.
superpower is my uniqueness. It's a superpower. My cultural uniqueness is a
Absolutely.
superpower. It's a superpower, and then like you told me in your quote that you just shared with me earlier,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is
Absolutely.
something to be shared and to be shared with others as a gift, and that I think that as we go along, we realize that there's more people who are envying that gift
Yeah.
than rejecting it. So yeah, so I already have
Yeah.
it. I already have it, my
Yeah.
superpower.
So, since you do like making documentaries, is there
Mhm.
any topic at this moment that you would like to make a documentary on?
I guess just continue the conversation on what we just discussed today, which is who is the immigrant, and what is someone who has an accent, and all those, everything that we just talked about today.
Hmm.
If I had a chance and opportunity to take it further as a documentary, then yeah, I would definitely love it. And in fact, it's also another project that is kind of like in the pipeline right now with the Greater Association of the Victoria-based association that I'm working with,
Yeah.
the Intercultural Association of Greater Victoria. We are just in discussion also with about that, about making maybe a possible documentary which is going to be on immigration, and just all those topics, but just continue the discussion, because obviously the podcasting is I like the podcasting because obviously
Yeah.
you take the time to discuss with the guest and go deeper, but the documentary also has another layer to the conversation,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And also
these
the
are
long form, right? You can do a
yes,
lot with it.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, absolutely.
So finally, Yannick, describe Canada in one word or a sentence.
There are two words that are coming to me:
Go ahead, share two.
welcoming and embracing. Welcoming and
Okay.
embracing. Yeah, welcoming and embracing. That's my experience, at least. The circles that I've navigated so far, they have been very welcoming to me as this unique and complex person, right? And but the thing is, I don't want to mislead people. I guess what I want to say is that in order for it to be welcoming, one has to be the most authentic that it can be, because people will respond to your authenticity and to your uniqueness. Yeah, I guess that would be the best way to describe it. You know.
How I'm interpreting is like it's welcoming towards all kinds of people and cultures and also allows you to embrace who you
Mhm.
are.
Yes,
Mm,
yes, but I think I would take it a little bit deeper,
mm,
because you might have people who would say, okay, that's not my experience, right? Because I'm different,
absolutely, yeah.
right? I of a different culture, but I haven't experienced that. To me, I believe the reason why it's been so welcoming to me is because I've been able to show a version of myself that is the most authentic and unique.
Absolutely.
But then the problem is, what happened to your unique self and your authentic self if the first encounter that you have kind of like make you lose your voice, right? Because of your accent, because of the way you look. So if after your first encounter you're afraid to show your uniqueness and your most authentic
Hmm.
self, then the welcoming is not going to happen. The gap between the welcoming part, our first arrival or our rejection, to become authentic again and to be unique again and to
Yeah,
express it again, because people will
absolutely.
respond
Yeah.
to that. People will respond to who you are, the truest version of yourself, right? That's
Yeah.
what people respond to, and they will welcome that.
It's definitely a journey
Uh huh.
from being misunderstood and not being welcomed, but
Mm-hmm.
to the point of really understanding that, okay, I need to be my true self and
Mm-hmm.
not change myself to try to become somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
that's the
Absolutely.
journey that one has to go through, and always doesn't happen like overnight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It takes time and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
introspection for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But Yannick, if you could leave me with one piece of advice, what
Mm-hmm.
would it be?
Oh man. I mean, it's difficult because you're already doing like I mean, I really do admire what you do, your work, and so I don't know if there's much that I can say to you, brother. There's not this much that I can say. I think you're doing well. I guess the only thing that I can say to you is just yeah, keep being you, keep doing your thing, and uh, I'm pretty sure that there have been times when you doubted yourself. You felt like maybe what's the reason of doing this, and are people
Yeah.
even listening to me? And but yeah, but I mean, if there was just one advice, I would just say, I mean, no, you have an audience, and yeah, and you just have to keep it moving and keep going, and we need you. We need your voice. We need your voice. So yeah, so keep it up, and you have us here, and we'll also do our best to share it around, among our networks and support you in any way that we can, and yeah, and yes, like I mean, I feel like I feel like I've known you for forever, because we have like a very deep connection, and you already feel like a brother to me. When I was when I was telling you about my tribe, so you definitely a member of the tribe, and yeah, and so we're there to support you. So keep being you, and keep sharing your gift with the world, brother.
Yeah.
Keep
Well,
sharing
I'm
your gift with
humble.
the
I'm
world.
humbled by your kind words. Thank you so much. And if people are listening, please reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. And how, Yannick, you would describe your experience being on the podcast today?
No, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. It was free flowing, conversation, and yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Just going back and forth like that. Typically, I'm the person. I mean, we kind of switch roles today, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
and to be honest, I'd rather interview people than being put on the spotlight. This is just my natural kind of instinct, right? So
Yeah.
I always find it, or I prefer being the one who interviews. But but it was a joy to just have that conversation with you today. And yeah, thank you again for having me. And it
Yeah.
was really a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you for being on the podcast and adding value to me and to my listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Gurasis.
Yes. Or you know how you taught me in the beginning? Nasum, right?
Nasum,
Nasum.
yeah, Nasum, yes.
I remember that. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.